And generally, when they ask, how much I'm willing to pay, I'll shoot it out. Normally a bit lower than what I want to be at just to get a reaction. But for some reason this time, I kind of like evaded the question, and I was able to spin it onto, well, how much are you guys looking to get for it? And thank God I did, because the price she told me was way below what I was gonna offer, which was already a low offer.
That's
Hate
when
it.
you go, that's a little more than I was hoping to pay. Okay, Emmanuel, welcome to this interview. I'm excited to talk to you about a deal that you did. Not sure if it was your first deal, but this was a $50,000 assignment. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It was not my first deal, but it was a $50,000 assignment.
Okay, we're going to talk about
Yeah.
this deal here in a minute. It was an $85,000 deal originally and
Yeah.
got cut down a little bit. So we'll hear the whole story. Pretty exciting. Congratulations on that. That's really cool. A land
Thank
deal
you.
too, right? It was a lot, not a house.
Correct. That's
Um,
right.
I think I talk about this a little bit from time to time, but wholesaling land is a gem. It's a little bit of a hidden secret. We've talked about it on these calls that I do with my community a little bit and in some of my content. But if you guys don't have vacant land on your radar, I really think you should, because there's some tremendous opportunity with lots, as we'll talk about today. So Emmanuel, great to meet you. Tell us a little bit about you, what market you're in, when you got started. And what I'd like to find out from you is from when you found out about real estate to when you took action, which is picked up the phone, to when you got your first deal. Help us understand that timeline. So tell us a little about you.
Yeah, sure thing. So I just want to start by saying thank you very, very much for having me on this call. It's honestly it's a huge honor. You were one of, if not the first, guys that I was watching on YouTube to kind of understand the game. So it's kind of surreal for me to kind of be on this call and being interviewed by you. So thank you very much for having me. So yeah, just a bit about myself. My name is Emmanuel. I'm 28 years old. I live in Montreal, Canada, and I wholesale vacant infill lots in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the surrounding areas. So basically, an hour within Charlotte. Um, Many people ask me how come I chose Charlotte. It was a complete fluke. I think I actually saw one of your videos saying like how to choose a market. One on Google wrote best wholesaling markets. I think first one was Florida, second was Texas, third was Arizona, fourth was North Carolina. I said, well, I don't want to do the top three. Let me do number four. So that was all the thought, all the 5 minutes that I put into it. Um, so I basically started kind of figuring out about wholesaling, because we don't have wholesaling in Canada, or it's extremely, extremely difficult to do. We don't have the same information that's available in the US. There's no such thing as skip tracing. So the whole concept was really foreign to me. So I started learning about it in February of 2023. And I think, like a lot of people, I started off with on-market houses.
Mhm.
And I realized very quickly that, especially calling from a Canadian phone number all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina, brokers were very, very skeptical of, me being, somewhat of a real investor and whatnot. So I think I tried that out maybe for a couple weeks, maybe for a month. Didn't really work out at all. Then I kind of went into more off-market houses, did that for maybe 2 months or so, and really got zero traction at
Cold
all.
calling? Cold calling?
Uh, yeah, cold calling,
Okay.
exactly. So got zero traction at all, and but every week I'm seeing, you interviewing people that are getting their first deals done, that are doing, 10, 15, $20,000 deals, and I'm like, wait a second, like this can't be impossible. Am I doing something wrong? Like, what's going on? So I kind of had a bit of a reset, and I joined a few of the Facebook groups, and one of the guys that was in the Facebook groups, his name is Mark. He actually lives in Florida, and he was doing a lot of deals, but he was doing only land. So I hit him up on Facebook. He wouldn't answer, kind of messaged him a few times, and turns out he didn't even use his Facebook. It was his wife that was managing his Facebook. And she said, hey, this guy keeps on, reaching out, like, see what's up. So basically got on a call with him. He told me how he got into land, and he said, look, try to focus on that for a few months. I'm sure you're going to get some traction. So that was maybe 4 months in. I would say that was June of 2023. So started getting into vacant lots still in Charlotte. I got my first hot lead maybe a week or two in. I was like, this is awesome. This is great. This is super easy. Can't wait to get the first one done. Long story short, that first deal took basically 4 months from, lead in the CRM to actual close, there was so much that happened in between. The seller went ghost and they changed their mind. Then they got a realtor involved. Then the realtor didn't want to use an assignable contract. So there was a lot of kind of roadblocks that happened for the first one. Got my first deal done in October of last year. So basically exactly a year ago is October
Mhm.
26th, I believe. And yeah, I mean, I kind of jumped in, both feet since then, and it's been going pretty well for the past
So
12
you
months.
got that one to the finish line. That was about a year ago from this interview.
Correct.
This big one that I want to talk to you about, the 50K
Yeah.
deal, how far in was that? When did that deal go down?
So that deal actually closed the beginning of this month. I think
Okay, so
September,
recent.
or sorry, excuse me, September 1st, so exactly a month ago.
Okay.
And what happened with that deal is that I was hitting this owner. I hit them a couple times, no answer, not interested. And then finally it just fell on her one day, and she said, "Oh, we might be thinking about it. I'll have her niece or her cousin reach out because the niece was a realtor. So that the realtor reached out, said, yeah, they might be thinking about it. Didn't really seem so serious or like there was so much motivation behind it. She's like, how much are you looking to pay? And I'd already done my due diligence before, kind of taking a look at the zoning, the lot, that it could be subdivided into multiple lots as well. And generally, when they ask, how much I'm willing to pay, I'll shoot it out normally a bit lower than what I want to be at just to get a reaction. But for some reason this time I kind of like evaded the question and I was able to spin it onto, well, how much are you guys looking to get for it? And thank God I did because the price she told me was way below what I was gonna offer, which was already a low offer.
Well, so let's stop right there for a second. Let's back up a minute.
Sure.
With vacant land, what filters are you using to market? What type of list? What type of lots
Yeah.
are you looking for? Let's
Yeah.
help everybody kind of understand
Sure.
land a little bit.
So what I'm specifically focusing on is more infill lots, so kind of vacant lots that are already within established neighborhoods, so not like the larger acreage that some other people do, like farmland or rural land or whatnot. For me, it's basically like you have house, vacant lot, house. So it's already in established neighborhoods where there's new construction going on. So I'll generally look at things that are below 2 acres, to give the opportunity to subdivide into multiple lots like this one. And what other filters? I'll normally have owned for more than 5 years.
Good.
Individuals, not corporate. And
Yep.
yeah, that's basically it. Like nothing too
Great.
complicated.
Yeah, those are awesome filters. So let me kind of expand a little bit on what Emmanuel's saying here. With land, if you think about it, there are a couple different categories, and you can wholesale any of these categories I'm about to explain. I tend to hyper focus on the exact same one that Emmanuel's doing, which is infill lots or buildable lots. These are lots that don't need some kind of rezoning. Maybe you can subdivide it like what you're talking about, but it's already in an established area and you're going into the marketing looking for lots where there's a high desire for those lots from builders and investors that do spec flipping. So these are people that want to buy that lot. They know that they can, get some plans drawn up, go down to the building department, pull a permit and start building for the most part. Now they may have to do some dirt work or they may have to tear a house down that's there or cut some trees down. But for the most part, it's buildable. That's one type of land deal. Another one are what we tend to call mini ranches, is like what I call them. And these are like out in the outskirts where somebody buys 5 acres. Maybe there's no electric or power out there, and people want them for recreational use. So they want to put their RV, they want to go four-wheeler, they want to go hunting. They're not really planning on it's someone's personal use. A lot of people buy property like that. It sits, they bought it for super cheap. They end up not using it like they thought they would, or they go out there twice a year kind of thing. And then you can buy it for cheap because they don't want it anymore and resell it to someone else also wanting a mini ranch. Like that's one strategy. You also have like tracts of land that are what I call for land banking or land bankers. And these are people that are like, hey, that's the outskirt of town. It's a chunk of land, like a 5 acre piece. Right now, nobody wants it, but I'm seeing that, the growth is pushing that way. and maybe in 5 years, Walmart will buy it from me and I'll make $1 million, right? Like that mindset. But I'm going to park my money. It's not really a buildable lot. It's just a chunk of land somewhere that I think is up and coming. A lot of people do that. They park their money in land like that. That's one type of thing where you could maybe, no one's looking at it. No one thinks it's a deal. No one's got a direct use for it, but you get it for a steal and then you market it and somebody else wants it to land bank. Those other uses, those are okay. They're a little tricky because you better understand recreational land and things like that. But what Emanuel's doing is exactly what I do. I like to go into an up and coming area. I like to find out where all the spec flippers are already buying land and flipping, and go where there's already action, go where there's already activity, figure out, reverse engineer, figure out what they pay for lots, for 1 acre lots or half acre lots or whatever. Now you know kind of what they look for. You know what they paid for it. And you know, hey, if I go pick this lot up for 125,000, I'm pretty certain there's a buyer for 175,000 because I'm seeing that activity. I've got data for it. I've got comps for it. I can research and find out this data. Now I can target lots knowing that there's a demand for it. There's a market for, I call it a market for it. And maybe I don't have my buyer predetermined, but I know if I get it at the right price, I'm probably going to be able to find a builder or an investor that's going to want to buy it, build on it, and flip it. So that's sort of the idea around like what Emanuel's doing. And then so you create these filters, like you just talked about. I want to go target sellers that have owned it for at least 5 years. I do 3 years, but 5 years is great because what that means is it means they've owned it. It's a buildable lot and they haven't done anything. They probably had big visions or something, or they were going to build their dream house. They end up not building it. It's sitting there. Or they bought it probably for cash, and you come along and offer them money for it and they're happy to sell it. Like that's sort of the idea. So, and then you're doing a filter on size. That way you're filtering out like big chunks of land. So you're creating these filters. Don't do too many filters. You're not going to have big enough of a list, but create some filters. Now you can target these owners, you know, sort of the back end values, and you go make offers. Did I basically summarize it?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that make sense, guys? Now, one thing I tell people is, look, if you're going to pick this strategy, like you picked Charlotte market, well, that's an amazing market. Meaning, I don't need to know anything about Charlotte other than that's a high growth market. People are moving there. There's building going on. I mean, very quickly you can identify, is this an up and coming area or is this a growing area by putting one filter in Zillow, Redfin, or Realtor.com, put year built minimum and go back a year or 2 years. So as of this recording, I would put in the filter year built minimum 2022. That's it. No other filter other than house. And then put sold and go back a year. And then look and see how many dots are on the map. If you've got a lot of dots on the map, that means an investor bought a lot, built a house, and sold it. And they did that in the last year or two. That means there's established investors that are buying land that are building and selling. That's our buyer. So now that we know that that's happening and we know where it's happening, because when you look at the map, it's got all the dots. So you're like, wow, there's a pocket over there in Atlanta or wherever. They're doing a lot of new construction. This is a market where there's demand for this. Now I got to go find inventory for these people that are building and flipping. Like literally takes you 2 minutes to identify if you've got a good market to farm for deals by looking at the sold activity. Then I'll even look at the active. So switch your filter from sold to active and then see, okay, well, how much inventory is on the market right now? And how many days on market are there? Is this stuff moving? What's the price point? So you're researching now. You're just figuring out what's going on in the market. Once I understand that, I can go find deals.
That's exactly how I find my buyers as well, because I kind of reverse engineer for my buyers to make sure that they're legit and not other wholesalers trying to daisy chain it. And that's also how I find my comps, because in Charlotte, like, from one neighborhood to another, a land could be worth 50,000 or 150,000, a few blocks over. So yeah, that's exactly how I research.
You can do all this research for free in propwire. You can go in there and pick the vacant lots filter. You can go in there into the more tab and do the custom filters where you're putting in years owned and how many properties. Like when we use propwire to do our buyers, like who am I going to wholesale to? We can put in there that they own a minimum of 5 or 10 or 50, and that'll tell you how big of a buyer they are, right? And then you're like, okay, this person owns 50 lots and it's some builder name, and maybe it's even a regional or national builder. And you're like, okay, they're actively buying because builders want inventory. So most builders, they'll stockpile inventory because they know they've got a timeline before they're going to break ground. They've got to do some zoning stuff, permitting stuff, plan design, like they got work to do. And every builder, because I build and flip new construction, I always want to have lots in inventory so that way I can like roll from take my crews and we roll into the next ones, which means I need 6 months to get my architectural plans done and my permits done and all that stuff. So most builders will have 2 to 3 years of inventory at any given time. So when you bring them a lot and it's in their market and it's priced right, they're going to buy it, even if they're not even going to get to it for a couple of years. They'll buy it.
Yeah.
Even if they've got 20 other lots they still have to build on, they'll still buy your lot.
100%.
Yeah. So it's awesome. It's a great way to find your buyers too.
And
So
just as a side note, all of my leads, all of my deals that I've closed have all come through lists from propwire, completely
awesome.
free. Yeah,
That's
it's
so cool.
fantastic. Yeah, I've only used propwire so far, never signed up for PropStream or any other services. So kudos to you for, for putting
Dude, that
together
makes me
that.
so happy.
Yeah.
What this big deal, which I want to get to this now, just now that we have
Yep.
the context of land.
Sure.
Um, what number roughly would you say? What number deal was that since a year ago? Like, what kind of pace are you on right now? I mean, if you feel like you're ready to scale? Do you got this dialed in? Where are you at with
Yeah.
it?
So that was deal. So I closed since my first deal, I've closed 13 deals.
Okay, great.
Okay. Um, since the beginning of 2024, where I consider that I really, went full time, full force. I quit my two full-time jobs and really just stuck with wholesaling. This year I've done 12 deals so far.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
amazing because
Yeah.
you're off to a really good start. I mean, to think about a little over a deal a month in your
Mhm.
first 9-10 months of really calling it for reals full
Yeah.
time, you're off to the races, man. Like that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Good for you.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I
And
love
September
I,
was
I love that you did it with PropWire with zero cost. You know,
exactly. It's crazy. Like,
it's
you
really
see
cool.
there's other sites that I'm sure, people like the other sites as well, but I'm like, this is completely free. You get great data, great information. Yeah, so that's what I've been using so far.
So let's get into your deal. You put some filters in PropWire, you got a list, and then you'd mentioned a little bit, but you cold called this landowner
Mhm.
and do you know any context? Like how long had they owned it? Why did they own it? What
So
was the
yeah,
background?
so I think what it was that the owner had passed away and now it was transferred over to the wife, and the wife that she was older, didn't really have anything to do with it. I don't know the reason why they were selling. I guess that's a main difference between land and houses, right? Land, you don't have that intense motivation to sell for, I'd say, 90% of the people, right? As you do for houses. So that's what makes it a little bit more tricky and different than houses. But yeah, she, I guess not really any crazy motivation to sell, but I had reached out to them a few times. Like I said, no answer, not interested. And then finally she said, my realtor will reach out to you. So spoke to the realtor. She had asked me how much I was willing to pay, and this lot was one single lot. And after I did some research and saw zoning and whatnot, you were able to split up into 6 lots.
Mm,
And I knew that each one was worth at least 30,000, at least. So I could have sold this easily for 180,
mm,
like easy in 2 seconds. So I actually sent it over to one of my buyers before even locking it up, before anything. I like to do that just to kind of test the waters. Maybe there's something that I don't know in this area that people are moving out of it or whatnot. He told me that he'd be able to pay 175. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be greedy. All right, all good. So then when I spoke to the realtor, I was planning on offering, like, I don't know, maybe 130 or 140 just to start, so that she can kind of yell at me a little bit and then I can kind of move up from there.
mhm.
Uh, But she had told me, she's like, yeah, we're probably, if we listed, we probably listed for 95,000. So that was exactly my face while I'm on the phone. I think I had to like cover my mouth. I'm like,
Like
okay,
who? Oh,
that's it. I was like, don't jump on it. And I said, just to make it,
don't act motivated.
don't act
That's when
motivated.
you go, that's a little more than I was hoping to pay.
Exactly. And obviously I couldn't just accept their first price. I said,
Right.
you know what, let's get this done at 90 and we'll cover your closing costs. And she goes, okay, we can do that. So I'm like jumping up and down, like, super,
Fist
super
pumping.
happy. That's it, fist bumping. I'm like, yeah, keeping it cool, but obviously behind the phone is a different story. So what happened, what happened after that was, I think this was a Thursday, I believe. So we had agreed kind of verbally on the price. Now we're discussing the terms. So she wanted a pretty high earnest money deposit plus a pretty significant due diligence fee, which is basically like a non-refundable
Yeah.
deposit as well. So, and obviously it would be my buyer that'd be putting down all that money. So I spoke to him. He was like, it was fine for him, but he just wanted confirmation for the utilities. He wanted the map. And I had called the city and they told me verbally. So I called them back. I said, can you guys send me the map? They're like, the guy who sends the map is like away or something like that. So I said, okay. So I waited till the next day, kept on calling his number, kept on calling, no answer. So I actually reached out to somebody in Charlotte that I knew, made him drive an hour to the office to go see this guy in person because I wanted to get this thing locked up ASAP.
And it was the
Long story
utility, it was showing where the utilities came in. Is that,
correct,
yeah.
exactly. To
Because he
make sure,
wanted to
because
know, he needed to know, am I gonna have to pay to run, electric 200 feet to the
correct,
property, stuff like that. Okay.
correct. Because this wasn't in Charlotte, it was in Gastonia, so it was a little bit outside of Charlotte. And in Gastonia, there are some areas that are well and septic. Most areas are water and sewer, but he just wanted to make sure before putting down non-refundable and all that, that he has the map in front of him to confirm. So I needed to get that map ASAP because I said if she decides to list, this thing
Oh,
is
you're
gonna go
toast.
flying. Exactly. So and she was a realtor. She wanted to use the standard contracts that I can assign. And because I'm not a non-US resident, it's very complicated for me to double close. So basically I had to get my buyer to sign directly off on the contract. And before he was going to sign and put the deposit, he wanted to confirm of the map. So I'm like trying to get this map done ASAP. I call a guy, make him drive to the office. He goes there. He basically gets kicked out. The guy who's supposed to have the map is like on vacation until Monday. So I'm like, oh God. So I call the realtor. I'm like, yeah, all's good, all's good. We just need to like confirm with the map, but like all's good, like just consider it
Write it
done.
up. Write it up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right up. So she's like, okay, she didn't sound super convinced. So it's like Friday night, I go to sleep. I woke up super early Saturday morning with a weird feeling. I check my phone. I have a text from the realtor saying, my client didn't want to wait till Monday. She has instructed me to list the property. It's on the MLS.
No, no.
So I start freaking out. I'm like, oh, and she listed at 95,000, which was like I said, a steal of a deal. So now I'm like super freaking out. I'm like, did I just lose on this massive deal that, was basically a done deal? So then I tell that to my buyer. He's like, okay, do whatever it takes, just lock it up. I'll send deposit. Like, just do it. So
So
I said,
Emmanuel,
okay.
why didn't you contract it and just put like a 3-day contingency to confirm the map
For some reason, they didn't want to wait. They wanted it like ASAP.
with no contingencies?
I mean, they allowed us a due diligence period, but they wanted the due diligence fee check like upfront.
Oh, and you didn't want to put the money down. You wanted your buyer to put the
Exactly.
money down, and he didn't want to put the
Exactly.
money down. Okay.
Exactly.
How
Which
much
in
was it?
retrospect, so the due diligence fee, I think, was 2 grand and the earnest money was 5 grand. So, I mean, in
Back, would you have
retrospect,
put that
not,
down?
excuse me,
If you were to go back, would you have put that down?
1000%.
Yeah, yeah.
Million percent, but everything is in retrospect, right? And it's like I'm a few months in, I'm a few deals in. It's like this 2 grand. If I lose it, it still hurts, right? So, but obviously hindsight is 2020. So, in any case, so then my dilemma is like, okay, what do I do? Do I make an offer that's a little bit more than my other offer, then a little bit more than their ask, but then risk somebody else coming in at 100, 105, 115? Or do I just come in with an insanely high offer, to secure it in. But then does she start thinking, wait a minute, if he offered me 90 and he's offering me so much more now, like maybe there's something here that I'm not seeing or that I'm not realizing.
It's like Game of Thrones, like you're strategizing 3 steps. It's like you're playing chess, 3 steps ahead.
Exactly. Exactly. I had like a whole like diagram in my head, a whole a whole tree diagram. Like, okay, if I do this. So, anyways, I decided to go with option two of just sending her an offer she couldn't refuse, to quote the Godfather. And so I sent in the offer for 125,000. So 35,000 more than what we had verbally agreed on. So, I mean, at that point, I was still making a very good spread, obviously. But I still would have liked to have made that 85. But she said yes. We got it locked up on the Sunday afternoon at around 4 or 5 p.m. She texted me at 8:30 p.m. saying, good thing that you moved fast because we already have an offer that's higher than yours, but we're
Yep.
locked in with you guys.
Yep.
So, that was a
And then
great.
Monday, did you get the map and all that done?
Yeah. Monday the map came through. Everything was
And your buyer
all but
fronted all the money. They put
yeah,
the money down.
exactly. He fronted all the money. He fronted everything. And
Did
then
you
from
put
there
the,
it was.
I'm curious, did you put you mentioned this, did the contract go in his name then, the original contract?
So it did go in his name, which is
How did
probably
you
not.
work out your assignment?
So I basically have two main buyers that I always work with. I
Okay.
don't really post in Facebook groups. These are guys that I've worked with since day one. Especially, when you're a new guy starting out and you start reaching out, I'm calling from a Canadian number. People are like, they're tired of wholesalers just trying to, build their buyer list and wasting their time. But these two guys really, really gave me the time of day since day one. They've been super honest with me, super transparent. They've helped me out a lot. I ask 100 questions every day and they always answer them. So they were loyal to me and I'm loyal to them at the same time. So, this is not
They
necessarily
paid you
something
a
that
finder fee, literally a finder fee.
exactly. So basically what happened with that one was I said, would you do this property at this price? And he said, yeah. So that's now our wholesale price. And then I just tell him, I said, okay, well, this is the contract price. And, he's really cool. They don't count, my pockets. They're pretty solid guys. So,
They had no
um,
problem paying you 50 G's.
no problem. And that was also something that was like nerve-wracking because I didn't think that he was gonna necessarily, completely screw me over, but he could have been, through inspection, could be like, oh well, this came up now. I can only pay you 130. So it's like, so 5,000 assignment fee. But he was super cool and we closed, sent me the wire the same day, and that was it. I mean, this is a guy, like I said, I've done a lot of deals with before, so I don't think that it's in his interest to try to screw me over for 50 grand because I've probably made
Now,
him
let me ask
tenfold
you,
that.
are you not able to do an assignment because of Canada thing or why?
So I'm able to do assignments. I'm able to do reassignments. I cannot do double closes,
So
and
why not do an assignment?
because first of all, the all the realtors in Charlotte area are super how do you say they can see an
Anti-wholesale.
assignment yeah, they can see a wholesaler from a mile away, for example. And secondly, when in my experience, when I'm dealing with a realtor, they always want to use the standard North Carolina realtors contract, which explicitly stipulates this contract is not assignable unless agreed upon by both parties in writing. So they
A red
always want to
flag,
use like
everybody. That's the North
exactly
Carolina standard contract has that.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
there is a workaround that I would recommend you use because at some point, you're gonna need to scale past your 2 buyers
yeah,
because you're gonna start leaving money on the table, and it's inevitable
absolutely.
because there's gonna be a higher paying buyer and your go-to people, they're gonna want deals. They're gonna want a deal. Now, it's fine when it's one a month or whatever, and you're going between the two. But when you start doing 5 deals a month, they're gonna start beating you up for a better deal, better deal.
Uh,
And so then you're gonna need to branch out and find more buyers. And you don't want
yeah,
to be doing a finder fee setup like that,
yeah,
especially if you're contracting with buyers you don't really have relationships with.
exactly.
So the other way you could get around this is by doing my LLC flipper technique. Do you know how that
Okay.
works?
Is it you ask for a name change or something like that?
Oh, what you're going to do is every deal you do, you're going to set up a new LLC for the
Okay.
deal.
Okay.
And then what you're going to do is you're going to sell your LLC membership rights to your buyer. So there's no assignment, there's
Okay.
no change of contract. What changes is the member of the LLC changes.
I understand.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's I do it all the time with non-assignable contracts.
Okay.
I've done it thousands of times actually with bank properties because
Oh, really?
when the market crashed in '08, everything was an REO, so everything was bank owned. And even through the whole short sale, all that craze, every contract was a bank property, and every bank property has no assignment clause. So rather than double close and pay all the fees,
Yeah.
what I was doing is I'd set up LLCs for every deal and sell the LLC to my buyer.
I
And there's nothing
understand.
anybody can do about it. There's
Yeah.
no checking that box, nothing. And no one had a problem with it. No one had any issues. The only thing
Yeah.
is you train your buyers like, hey, I'm selling you the LLC. So then the paperwork's a little different and they buy the LLC, they come into the closing and sign, and you're
Mhm.
getting a fee, but it's not an assignment fee. It's a sale of a business. So, but it's all the same to you. It's a 1099 for income and that's it.
Okay.
That will allow you, if you started doing it that way, that will allow you to continue to not have to deal with the assignment issue that you have
Yeah.
with sellers and agents, but scale past your couple of buyers.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look into that. The only road bump that I always bump into is because I'm Canadian and not US resident, there are tax implications. So that's why I can't double close because as a non-resident selling real property, I'm subject to a FERPTA tax, which is 15% of the gross proceeds, not even the profit, that's
Uh,
withheld for a year. So that's the whole issue that I'm trying to find a workaround at the moment, which I haven't been able to yet.
Let me brainstorm that and get back to you on
Yeah.
some ideas because I know there's a lot of foreign investors that, uh, I mean, maybe you can set up a U.S. entity and it operates out of the U.S. and the money stays in the U.S. and you don't bring it back to Canada or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. Well,
Yeah.
eventually get it out of there, but
Exactly. It's complicated because I actually do have a US LLC at the moment, but I just spoke to a cross-border accountant, and then what makes things even more complicated is that Canada views an LLC differently than the IRS does. So I effectively
this
get
is why
double
guys
taxed.
you don't be born in Canada. Like you gotta,
Exactly.
my wife's Canadian, by the way. She's a U.S. citizen.
Amazing.
Yeah, she actually was from Ontario.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
She was born in
our
Ontario.
neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, awesome.
So we go to Tim Hortons all the time, you know.
Oh, it's great. It beats your guys Dunkin' Donuts, I gotta say.
Tim Hortons, if you guys don't know, if you ever go to Canada, every corner is a Tim Hortons. Like
Oh yeah.
they love their Timmies
What's not to love about it?
and poutine.
There you go. Exactly.
Well, that's fantastic. Good for you, Emmanuel. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Super proud
Thank you.
of. Yeah, that's really awesome. So guys, leave a comment and say, Emmanuel, you're a flipping genius. And if you're a Canadian flipping genius, you're still a flipping genius.
Flipping genius, eh?
Okay, awesome call, Emmanuel. Sure appreciate you. Super proud of you. Keep up the hard work and all the rest of you guys too. And we'll see you on the next call.